Hello and welcome to Great Trade Layouts Live, where I think this month we're starting the stream off the right way, which is to say we're actually streaming and I pressed record and I'm seeing my audio levels and I'm seeing you guys and I'm seeing everything I need to see. So it is great to be with you on this wonderful Thursday evening. I am, of course, your host, Nick Ozrak, and it is so great to be here with you on this wonderful night because we are going back to N scale. We're going back to Iain Rice, a track planner guru, and looking at making a nice little short line. Before we get into that, though, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. I've seen some familiar faces in the chat. Hey, J Train. Hey, Millennial Modeler. RWS Baden. Looking forward to this build as I'm an N scale guy now. Good. Well, we aim to please. And look, I might be a little biased to HO. I will admit it because HO is what I'm doing on my Greenfield Village layout over there, which we will see on the show at some point. And I've been working on more lately. But tonight, we're talking short line railroading. We're talking how to fit an N scale branch line into a 5 by 7 foot space, which you think about it, that's small. That's so small that you probably couldn't fit a 3 by 6 N scale square layout in. So we're talking really compact, but hopefully the end product of this is something that gets a little bit of all these different elements of branch line railroading. So we're going to hop into it and start laying down some track. You can see I got a little bit of a head start. I just put in some display track for the thumbnail. I also wanted to get the turntable in because with Train Z, the turntables lock into the grid because of the way the terrain works. So I wanted to make sure that lined up, and that's the one terrain-specific thing. But everything else, we could build around that, and we are going to. So we can see... this is one I've been looking at for a while. So this track plan, it's probably been published other places. I have it in... Let me see. Yes. I just finished my move, and one of the perks is that I now have a bookshelf readily apparent. This is a special issue of Model Railroader, How to Build Small Model Railroads. I picked this up in 2014, 2015. If you can find a copy on eBay, this is worth it. There's some really nice track plans in there, some really good designs, some good articles about how to do a lot in a little space. There's some other plans in this, and there's actually a full article from Iain, of which this track plan is one piece of it. He actually spends a lot of time talking about the height that you should put your layout at. This is what stood out to me, though, because we're building it for N, but if you increase the size of it, the size of the overall space, you could very well probably make it in HO. And it's one that I look at and think, well, would I do it in HO? Because my dream layout is something Canadian Pacific-esque in the 40s/50s. But I'm very comfortable with the idea of doing some kind of freelance CP thing rather than a specific place because of the freedom that gives me. So when I look at this plan, I think this has quite a few of the elements that I would want. So that is what we are going to be playing with here, is that even though I did sell this as we're building N scale, and we are building N scale, but this is very much a plan that you could adapt to HO very easily. Heck, you could probably even adapt it to O if you had enough room. It's really about how much space you have around the edges of your room. So again, 5 by 7 in N. So safely you could do that as a 10 by 14 in HO, and it really wouldn't require any adapting because, as you can see, maybe you'd move your sidings a little bit closer together, but there's no funky geometry or grades. This is entirely flat. So This is going to be a fun one, though. I'm looking. One of the things I've always loved about Ian's track plans, maybe you guys will agree with me on this, is just the fact that he hand illustrated them rather than just using computer software. And it makes it really pretty to look at. So even while we're in this initial stage of just the flat world, this is kind of pretty. So we've got this part of that he didn't spend a lot of detail in the article talking about operations, so that's one of the reasons why I've been really curious about and intrigued by the plan and wanting to build it, is because there's some degree of thought as far as how it operates, but the question remains, how well does it operate? Does it have enough going for it to keep it interesting? I'm actually afraid that it has too much, that it's perhaps maybe a little over ambitious. And what do I mean by that? Why am I so worried about that? Well, I'll show you why. Because if we look at this town, we will see that there are a number of buildings. All of these buildings with lines disappearing off into the white, those are all individual industries. So if I pull up the full track plan on my screen, which you can't see. Oh, that made me really dark. Sorry about that. If I pull up the full track plan, we have... Oh, that's the cropped version, so I have to switch a few screens. Okay. We have a feed mill, an industry, wood grain elevators, freight house, meat packing plant, coal silo, coal storage bins, oil depot, storage... the storage tracks are back here, and a concrete grain elevator. And look, if you really want a ton of industry and a ton of different things to switch, I get it, but I feel like that's going to get really crowded. So part of what we're going to be discovering tonight is how full do we want to make that background? Because just because we can put all those industries there doesn't mean we should. That's what we're going to be playing with in parts. Hello, John Overman. Hello, Rick Dunn. Good to see both of you guys here today. How you, Union Pacific Central Iowa Rail fan? Now, you can see from... Here's where I encourage you guys to get creative if you're watching live or if you're watching on repeat. In that, as you can see, the name of this plan is, quote, Transition Era CB and Q. But we're actually not doing the CB and Q. And even if we were calling this layout Transition Era CB and Q, we could do better than that. And that's not a knock against Ian, because the whole point is, hey, this should be something that you can take ideas away from and isn't locked into being a particular railroad or thing. What we are making this, actually, I will show you what we are making this. You saw it in the thumbnail, but I'm going to give you a quick preview of it. We are making a layout for the fictional Minnesota and Northern Railroad. This is made by a guy whose handle is Daylight Train. He's a member of Trains Forge, trains-forge.com. You should check out they have a lot of really nice freeware, and including some really good payware models, and this is one of them. This Minnesota Northern. So we're going to be playing with that later. But the whole point is, this is going to be this layout that we're building. We're theming it specific to the Minnesota and Northern. So we need a name for both the layout itself. So maybe calling it Minnesota Northern something branch or something division. I encourage you guys to be creative in the comments. And also what the name of this town is. So Amersfoort, Ian designed this, going back a little bit, memory serves me, Ian designed it for a guy in the Netherlands, and so he named the town after something near where this guy lived. but I don't know that I feel particularly wedded to calling it Ambersford. So, name suggestions for the layout, for the town. I am all for it. So, if you're new to the show, welcome. Glad to have you joining us tonight. So, what you're watching right now is the connect the dots portion of the show, which is to say, we are just looking at the lines on the track plan and we are tracing them with the track. Not actually tracing them, but we're placing these track splines, as they're called. The world's best flex track, you could say. And we're placing along the lines. So people always ask, does this mean you could design your train layout in Trains with a Z? The answer to that, I would say, is no, because Train Z will allow you to do all sorts of things in the simulator that you just can't do in real life. So my advice is always to start with some sort of track plan that either you've drawn by hand and ideally done the protractor compass thing, or use a program like AnyRail or some of the other digital offerings out there where you know that the track placement is accurate. So I always advise that. Then you import it into the simulator, and from that you know that your dimensions are going to be accurate. And we shouldn't allow this stream to get on too long before I thank tonight's sponsor, Banta Model. Right, point that way. Banta Model Works, creators of such fine kits as their recently launched East Broad Shop electrical shop kit. So Banta Model Works has been making, over the past couple of years, a number of structures from the East Broad Top shops. And they have some other great structures as well. And if you want something that's a little bit more unusual that you're not going to see on just any other layout, I encourage you to check out their product. They make some fine Craftsman laser cut kits. bantamodelworks.com. You can check that out. And probably at the midway point of the stream, I'll show you some photos of that electrical shop. And we're going to also sneak it into this design, because the whole point is to say that you don't have to be modeling the East Broad Top to think some of the structures are cool, and there's always ways to sneak in East Broad Top structures as other things. Okay, so let's see. We still have to add our second staging track. Now, those who were with us or saw on repeat the Lolita and Mad River route that we did back in late 2022 and early 2023 will remember that one of my few points of contention with that Iain Rice track plan, much as I adored it, is that he put the staging behind scenery where it was inaccessible. And so I modified the track plans. So I didn't really modify the track plan, but I modified the room space to assume that it was more of a peninsula and you could access that staging. We're kind of facing that issue again. As you can see, these buildings are supposed to go right up against the backdrop. So your staging is once again completely hidden from the world. How do I feel about that? Well, number one, your track lane, you're going to want to test it and test it and test it before you make it hidden, because with these switches back there, you don't want something to derail, especially this one here. That said, maybe your design is one such that you can remove the backdrop, or maybe you'd access the back. We're just going to build it as is, because this is a sim environment, and this is just more of a playtest exercise, so we don't have to, in this case, worry about whether or not that's going to be an issue. But it's something that I point out because it's the type of thing that you would see on paper or in a magazine, and you wouldn't think much of it. And then you go to actually build it, you go, well, wait a minute, that doesn't quite make sense. That doesn't quite work. And it's good to, that's one of the reasons I'm a very, I champion what I call pre-visualizing, which is what we're doing here tonight. Being able to lay this out and experiment with it in advance so that if something is off, we know it before we build it and then go, oops, I did all that work and now I need to undo that work. So we're going to put that spur coming off of there. Harley Memphis says, let's see. I call it Banta Rice Valley Railroad to give the two credit. Banta rice. Maybe it's because I had rice for dinner. Banta rice feels like a specific kind of rice. I mean, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe what we should do is have kind of a tongue-in-cheek industry name that's like Iain's Rice. But what business would name itself after rice? That's what I'm struggling to think of. I like where you're coming from though. Keep working on that. And I could see putting Banta in there as well, and it's a capacity. I'm just not quite sure what that capacity is. Yeah, not quite crazy about how that looks. So one of the compromises we have to make, because this is a sim, is where we can place our attachment points for the turntable. Well, it says it's lined up there, so we'll see if we can move that there. I was worried that it would curve too much, into that, but let's see if we could. That's definitely not what I want to do. So while we're Jasmine Rice, okay, now we're really okay. I don't think we want to go that far down the rabbit hole of rice themed names. I'm open to it. It's just it's got to feel right. Some of these are just not quite sure about. Let's see. I'm gonna need to move that point for the switch to activate properly. There we go. That looks about right. Okay, and then we'll need another spur coming off of the side of that turntable. And that's going to be accessible for things like the coal dock. Do we want to put it there? Yeah, probably. We do have a little bit of latitude there. We could put the coal dock there like that. I think that's good. And then sand house. I do have a sand house model. So we're going to go into our library of assets. We have a couple of sand houses to choose from. We have this guy here, which kind of like the look of that. We also have this one here, which is a little bit more lower profile. I kind of like this one. I think I want to do this one for tonight. So we'll put that right about here. And then we'll get a piece of track linking them and extending off a little bit so there's actually room to bring your locomotive into the scene. Harley Memphis, I'm a DJ in real life. That name rolls nicely off my tongue. Banta Rice. I mean, it rolls off the tongue. I just don't know that it quite sells the vibe of the layout that we're going for. That's more the concern with it than if it sounds good. White Star 1220. How's your day been, Nick? Good. Busy. I'm preparing for a bit of a vacation. So, you know, here I am live streaming right before I need to pack, right before I need to boot scoot and boogie, but it's been a good day. Hopefully you've had a good day as well. Otherwise, not a terribly exciting day. More excitement to come in the future, though. There are plenty of exciting things in the future. I've got a cat. Here's my cat Luca. Here's the kitty Cameo. I don't know if you can hear him purr or not. Oh, he's a good boy. Actually, I'm joined also by my other cat, Alco, right off the side. So we have some nice cat company. So, Minnesota commercial. That name feels kind of taken. Um, uh, or at least a bit too modern for what we're going for here. All right, let's take a look. I think I have all the track in place. I do. Usually I've forgotten at least one patch. Oh, I've forgot a bit of that siding. Let's get that in there and then we'll be good on the track. No, I didn't forget. That's all there is to that side. Okay, so we have all the track in place. Uncle Ben's might be upset. Yeah, I know. I don't think Uncle Ben's going to be it either. But okay, so now that we've got all the track in place, let's start figuring out how we're going to use it. I want to start with the hard stuff first. And that's going to be these industries. Because we've got a lot of them, and I'm going to try just placing them all in and see how they look. But I have a feeling we're going to thin them out. So going from left to right, first we have this feed mill. So let's look up feed mills, because I'm sure I have something in here. I do. I might need something a bit smaller than that. I have gotten more into 3D modeling, and I'll show you. Actually, I can show you one of those. So I used this building on the Valley City Street and Interurban layout, which you can download on greattrainlayouts.com. But one of the things I've started to do is I've taken the buildings of Paul Charland, who made this structure, and I think I have the full. I forget what I named the full version of this mill, or if I even imported the full version of the mill. But I turned it into a building front. I cut off the back, so it is just half of it, and now it sticks out of the fascia. So for the final version of this layout, I'll probably make more of these so that they don't overlap onto the staging. For tonight's stream, we're not going to worry about that too much. So we're going to use that, and we're going to use it as the... We'll use this as the feed mill. Actually, that feels about right in terms of size, and about roughly the space we want to take up. So weird seeing a building front without its back, but it works nicely. Okay, our next industry up, we need the very helpful label of industry. Maybe this is the rice mill. I don't know. Let's see what other mills we've got to work from. Something that feels like we would see it in the Midwest. I mean, we might see windmills in the Midwest, but that's not quite what we're going for. I like this as a building. It's way too big for crossing over the tracks, but just looking at the front of it. Actually, here's how we really should be judging it. Let's put up our backdrop, because that's going to help us to guide our thinking of what this is actually going to look like when we've separated the back and the front. Now, truth be told, we could also just leave the staging visible like we did on Lolita and Mad River, but for this, I think it's going to be easier if we separate them. So that's what we're going to do, at least for the time being, and then later I might adapt that a wee bit. Okay, so this gives us our backdrop. Oh, I'll tell you guys about something exciting I did recently. Since today wasn't particularly exciting, but I had a very exciting Friday. I visited the Appomattox Court. Well, I should say I visited Appomattox Courthouse, which I thought meant that there was just a courthouse, but that was the name of the town. History lesson time. What significant historical event took place in Appomattox Courthouse? So, random trivia for you while we're getting this wall up here. But I visited that, and I'll speak more on it so as to not spoil what it is. But that was the only clue I'll give you is it's now a National Historic Site. Um, that was pretty cool. Okay, we've got these wood grain silos, which I do have some grain silos. I have the one that I can use frequently. I mean, there's this, but that's more still a bit taller than what I'm looking for as well. It's always worth contemplating how one makes the most of. I could do something like that. It's a bit wider than I want to go for. But I like how it looks. Yeah, that looks actually kind of legit. Maybe if I move this industry down here and then move this here, that'll look good. First hot dog with mustard on it. Nope, not the historical event that took place at Appomattox Courthouse. Does not involve hot dogs. I could say that with full assured confidence. See, this is part of why I'm thinking. This is part of why I'm not sure that it's feasible to have all this stuff in such a tight place. Because here he's put this grain elevator right on two switches leading to two other industries. And I just feel like that's too much. Plus, all you're going to have then in terms of what your town looks like, because you don't get much room for backdrops because your building flats have to go right next to the backdrop. I think it's too much. I do want a grain elevator, but I think I want to have it over here. That is labeled as coal storage bins, but I'm willing to forego the coal storage bins for a nice grain elevator. So that is my executive decision. But that's why I said going into this, I think there's just too much stuff going on here. Because, yes, it means it's another place you could switch. But it also means spotting a car right by the switch, which you don't need the runaround because you do have the runaround at the station. So you can block it. But it just feels messy. I'm not a fan of that. There's my man Daylight Train, who is the Minnesota Northern inventor, creator, shall we say. Surrender of the Confederacy to the Union. That is what I will say is a correct answer, and it is what I would have said, but it turns out it's not entirely accurate. What we were taught in the history class is a bit wrong. It turns out that what happened at Appomattox Courthouse, it was still historically significant, but it was specifically the surrender of the Army of Northern Virginia to the Union. It was not the end of the Civil War. It was not a peace treaty. It was a surrender of a specific army. And I didn't realize that distinction going in, so that was very cool to learn. There's a lot of visiting Appomattox Courthouse makes you realize how many nuances history has, because usually the end of the Civil War is just talked about as, oh, Lee and Grant manned at Appomattox Courthouse and signed this thing. And it's like, yeah, it's technically true, but there's a lot more nuance to it than that. And a lot of time that just gets kind of lost in the mixture of things, because I mean, truth be told, one realizes how enormous the Civil War is in terms of trying to encapsulate what it was and all of the battles and all of the stories. It's not easy. So I get why the textbooks cut it short, but I would say it impressed me. I expected like one or two buildings, and it's this whole small little village that the Park Service has preserved, including the courthouse, but the courthouse is not where the building in which the document Lee signed Grant's terms of surrender. It was actually in a house owned by a local businessman, in the parlor of a house owned by a businessman. That was really so. That was a cool visit. It's very out of the way, even for me. In Central Virginia, it took 2 years before I finally got to seeing it. I got around to seeing it, but it was is very neat. It's a testament to the importance of the Park Service to preserve pieces of history like that. So, definitely recommend checking out Appomattox Courthouse if you are in Central Virginia. Harley, Memphis, 1865. Yes, April 9th of 1865. Parrot, I've seen some real convoluted industries like that before. Oh, with regards to putting the... Yeah. And it's not to say that it couldn't be done. It's just to say I don't know that I want it. Partially because I'm willing to fill up more of this, but I feel like I want to see the station. I want to see the town. Because there is a station. And I would say, given what we have, given that there's a roundhouse here, that would suggest that this is at some sort of junction or some sort of... excuse me, I have to think. Junction, or it's the end of the branch. So there should be a town here, and so I kind of want to have that represented a bit more. So we're going to put some downtown buildings there. Plus, I like the challenge of it, because, I mean, this is a very skitty place to fit a town, which, yay for doing a shelf layout. That's a big element of what we're doing here. But it does create some challenges. Okay, so now we have this meat packing. So again, in terms of fitting a lot into a little, we've got a meat packing plant, and it's just sitting on this switch, and that just that feels like a lot. This, I guess, is also part of the meat packing plant. The round building that I've covered with the grain elevator is a coal silo. Yeah, right here. We've got a lot of stuff going on in a very little space. I'm going to say let's put the grain elevator here just so that platform lines up a bit more properly. But then, do we try to fit the meatpacking plant in there too? I mean, look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 industry spots already. And we're going to probably fit 6 because we've got an oil depot, a coal silo, and a concrete grain elevator. So... part of it is how much do we need? Because you have to consider as well that yes, you might go crazy in one operating session and work all of these car spots. You might do that, but maybe you don't need that amount of industry. I don't know that I do. Well, I mean, we could. I'm trying to think if maybe it makes sense to put something else here other than more silos, as in this would be a concrete grain elevator so that you have a couple of grain elevators being served. I kind of like the idea of having to sort grain cars. Let's see what we have in terms of concrete grain elevators. I have something that feels like it's going to fit in there enough. Ooh, bulk loads elevator. I like this. See, this to me might be a more realistic way of getting in yet another industry without taking up a lot of space. Like if we put this here, this bulk loads thing, then it's representative of another industry. I don't know. I'm going to not worry about that at the moment. Let's see what we can do for elevators. Oh, I like this model. That's a cool model. Not concrete, but it looks cool. I'll save that for another day. Something with a little bit more room, because we are pretty packed in here as it is. Looking at your chats, Parrot. The Confederacy didn't officially surrender for a couple more months. Exactly. And the final surrenders of Confederate forces didn't occur till November when CSS Shenandoah arrived in Liverpool, the UK. Yes, I learned about that there. Yeah, the final surrender of a part of the Confederacy was a. Oh, that's where that was. I was trying to remember. This is based on a Walters kit, and I came across it. I thought, oh, that's nice if I wanted to represent the actual Walters kit. Which I suppose I could do here, and then that gives me more room for the other industries. I'll leave that to the side in case I want to do something with it. But yes, that is true. It's funny what you can learn. You tuned in thinking, okay, I'm going to learn about layout design, and here we are talking about the the surrender of the Confederacy. Um, but it's fun to have random musings, kind of. And for me, I actually did learn something about model railroading from going to Appomattox Courthouse. I and you're like, Dick, the nearest trains aren't for a few miles away, and you're right. But gosh darn it, I'm gonna tie trains into every piece of history that I possibly can. And why should a little fact like that stop me? Um, but the if you and you can see it on Google Maps or look at photos online. I was admittedly when I moved, so I've moved to, I still live in Central Virginia, but I moved to a new apartment. And when I was looking at my train layout, my goal has been to model Greenfield Village. But before did the move, I thought, I don't know if I'm liking the design as much. I don't know if I really want to do it still. But when I visited this historic site, it sort of reinvigorated my love of outdoor museums with the stone pathways and the buildings nicely separated and the lawn nicely manicured. I like that as an aesthetic. So what I realized with my own layout is I still like this idea. I just don't like how I've arranged the buildings. And so I spent some time playing around with both in Train Sim as well as on the actual layout, working different building arrangements, and I was really happy with the result. So you can learn a lot from doing visits to museums. So there's our model railroading tie-in between Appomattox Courthouse and Great Train Layouts Live. Thank you for tuning in as always. I hope that you get something interesting out of this. And if you do, I would encourage you to go to patreon.com/theroundhouse, where you can support what we do here on the show. You're also supporting the Roundhouse podcast through that way. And you get early access to train layouts like these. In fact, if you go there today, you will be able to download, before anybody else gets access to it, the Wisbeach and Upwell train layout that we built during our live stream back in February. So if that sounds like fun, and you could support the podcast for as little as $1 a month, patreon.com/theroundhouse. I have no idea what this grain rack thing is, but gosh darn it, that looks cool. So I'm going to put that here. That looks industrial and that looks cool. And it looks like something I could spot cars at too, which I like. And I actually like how I don't love the texture on this building, but it fits the space just right. That's going to stay there. Yeah, and you're right, Parrot. The more of American history has been influenced by railroading than not. Very true, and especially the Civil War. So many stories about the significance. I mean, obviously the Andrews Raid, but also just the significance of it as a means of ferrying troops and supplies. What about a flour mill? I mean, I suppose this could be the flour mill. Although then, does the fact that the mill that would use the product diminish the importance of the railroad actually servicing the thing? I see it as another industry. Maybe they make farm equipment. I like the idea that maybe farm equipment's produced here. Okay, tractor supply. Not that tractor supply, but you get what I mean. Okay, so let's take a moment and kind of take stock of what we've built so far. We have our feed mill over here, our tractor manufacturer over here. We moved the grain elevator to here. We've got our freight house. There's supposed to be a meat packing plant there, but I don't know if we want that. We're going to call this, I know it isn't technically an oil depot, but it could be whatever we want. So we're calling this the oil depot. Where the cold storage bin should be is where we've got this grain elevator. And then we have this concrete grain elevator. I'm thinking that maybe what we should do, this building isn't labeled. I'm not sure what that, no, I know what I want to do for that. Cold storage. So now, remember what I was saying earlier about how one can take real buildings and use them for a completely different purpose? Well, tying in with today's sponsor, Banta Model Works. So I mentioned that they have a kit version of the electric and brake shop that you can get for HO scale. And the thing about this building is it is part of a much larger complex in Rock Hill Furnace, Pennsylvania at the East Broad Top Railroad. But on its own, that building could serve a multitude of different purposes. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to make it, I mean, it's not going to quite fit in this space here. Looks a little, doesn't look bad there. It looks a little tight. But instead, what if we put it here? Nice to have something. We've got all these towering skyscrapers. Nice to have something a bit closer to the track level. Now, admittedly, this, because it doesn't have a platform, it doesn't look rail served, and that is true. I have something in my eye, of course. But if we're saying it's maybe the office for the coal bins, and ergo the pile, so it's an energy company, and I know what I need for oil. That's QCR. Yes, this is one of my favorite industries because it's so compact. This is a tank car unloader. So this will be what we use for our oil tank industry thing. And then coal bins. Let's find some coal bins we can use. That's a bit big. Although, pretty much fits. Yeah, I can make that work. There we go. Okay. So, now we have, in terms of car spots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And to my way of thinking, I'm happy with that. Oh no, I put all of that in the wall layer. I hate when I get my layers mixed up. Well, that should be okay for today. We'll leave it there for now. But if we hide the base maps, this is what our layout actually looks like. And you could say, oh, Nick, you could fit more industry in there. And I can. Again, I just don't know if I like spawning cars like a meat packing plant. Like, here's the thing. A meat packing plant to me feels like they need to be huge sidings for taking stock cars. A meat packing plant there's just gonna have room for 2 stock cars. It just doesn't feel realistic to me. So no meat packing plant, no grain elevator on a switch. Now we have room for slightly longer cuts of cars, which I like that. So I'm gonna say that's gonna be our industry max. Now let's try to get a town to fit in there. At some point, I might try to make some building flats that are of kind of like what I did with this building here. Because I don't like, there aren't a lot of backdrops for towns that I can use. And we really need something to give the sense that there is a town here. Because I could fake some of it by putting in these building flats. And it's not bad, but it lacks depth. And everything's going to lack depth unless we had an actual honest-to-goodness backdrop. So I think what we'll do is we'll put... I mean, I hate to to just use trees because that does feel a little underwhelming. But admittedly, it is a way to get us to feel like there is more than what we can see. We're going to try it. If I really don't like it, then we'll get rid of it. But something tells me I might have to off-stream create the backdrop. That said, if you're not treating this like part of the Midwest, but instead of treating this like... Well, even the Midwest has its forests. Depends on which part of the Midwest you go to as well. And then we put our trees here, and then along the back here. That's the thing. Sometimes you just gotta do it and then realize, okay, I actually didn't want to do it quite in that way. I like that. Good enough for the time being. Keeps us moving and a grooving to save our souls. And so that is what we are going to do. If I can get the backdrop to... There we go. Reappear. I like that. I'm happy with that. What do you guys think? I know we could do with a more detailed backdrop with some disappearing roads and so forth. But in terms of just giving us something to work with, that feels solid. If you want some tractor models, I could finish up my John Deere Model A. Well, sure. That's always a welcome addition. And Harley. Nick, do you add your buildings to your track layer, or did you make a different layer? I add my buildings to the root layer because I just feel like I'm going to use them all together. I usually use separate layers if for some reason I might not want to see everything all at once, such as if I wanted to hide the wall, which obviously in this case hides some of the buildings because I did it incorrectly. Actually, one of the commissioned layouts I'm working on right now, because yes, I take commissions, and if you'd like for me to build your layout, including on live stream, go to greattrainlayoutslive.com. But one of the commission layouts that I'm working on now, the person has a few different ideas of how they want to do staging, so I'm going to probably put different track configurations on different layers so that then they have the ability to toggle the different versions of staging on and off. That's usually when I use layers. Yeah, we'll save that grain elevator for another day. We'll save that grain elevator for when we actually need the Walther's grain elevator. Except I can't delete it because it's on the walls layer. Of course. Okay. So, we've got our town. Oh, the last thing we need to do in this neck of the woods is we need a station. So let's see what we got. We actually have a good amount of room for a station. We've got some curved platforms going on, which should make it a little bit funky, but let's just see what we have here that could be nice in the context. Ooh. I don't know if it looks American enough. It's a nice model. I like it as a building. It definitely looks... Yeah, that style of overhang... I mean, maybe if it was like Great Northern, I could get away with that. It definitely... Yeah. It's a cool building, though. But let's see what we've got here that might be a little bit more fitting for the Northwest. Or for the Midwest. Actually, I like that. But we're going to use it somewhere else. I think I want to use that over here. But we'll come back to this. Let's see. Oh yeah, this was another station. Totally the wrong shape. But this was another station that I imported from Microsoft Train Simulator. This is Bellows Falls, Boston and Maine, Rutland joint station that existed at a actual diamond. So that's a cool building, but too big for what we're doing here. So we're just going to keep going through our list of stations until we see something where we go, oh, that looks like it could work. And then we'll put that in. I love this building. I'm actually using this on a different layout. What I love about Trainsy, though, is the ability to just look at, oh, I like this one. I mean, we're then calling this town Relis, but I like the station. That, I do like that building. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with that. Unless I see something else in the next minute that really speaks to me. Millennial Modeler. What documentation is needed for a virtual layout to be built on commission in lieu of track plan? Would aerial photos shot straight down towards the layout work as a base? Probably not, but if you don't have a track plan and would like for me to make a track plan for you, that is something that I do. I design my track plans in AnyRail. So if you give me a track configuration and your actual physical space to fit it in, then I can design it up in AnyRail. So we make sure that it will fit the space and then build it in Trainsy, knowing that it will work. Lahara. I don't know if I like the squareness of that station. Doesn't quite do it for me. Yeah, I think we'll stick with Relis for the time being, and I might change it later. Hey, Swirly Trains, glad you could join us. Harley Memphis, we lost a lot of our force here due to the fire. Sorry to hear that. I take it you're in the Midwest somewhere. So, we need some platforms. For some reason, I envision this as all high platform, but I don't know that it needs to be. I think this could actually be low platform and look perfectly fine. So I'm going to try that approach. We're going to make it all asphalt. But we're going to make it low platform because I want to try that. Oh, the only thing is I don't have V pieces to kind of nicely fit it into that. So I'll have to play with that a little bit off camera. But, yeah. I like how that looks. I mean, that's really nice. Because one of the things, when I've considered how I want to fit this, not how I want to fit this, but when I've considered the possibility that I would do something like this in HO, one of the big challenges for whatever layout I'm going to build is that I really want to... so one of the trains that I have that I barely get to play with because it's just so gosh darn tootin' big, and ergo doesn't really fit in an apartment, is Rapido's Canadian, as in the Canadian. It is a beautiful train set. It's a 10-car streamliner. I love that thing. I wish I got to play with it more. Now, a layout like this would be able to fit even Rapido's... I forget what the minimum curve radius on this... Oh, curves are 15 inches. So a layout like this in N-scale will fit Rapido's N-scale train. And I'm sure if we scaled it up to HO, then the curves work out to about 30-inch radius, which is perfectly big. So part of the thinking is, even if this is a branch side, I like the idea that our mainline trains could come into the scene and that they wouldn't look out of place. That's part of what we're going to test during the play portion of today's episode. Is how do scenes like this work for both your small branch line train, your Doodlebug, as well as your big mainline passenger train? Because I feel like it should fit reasonably well. We have a section house here. Okay. We could do that. I do have believe I have section houses that are easy to find. Yeah, I like that one. I kind of feel like I want it facing out into the space, which, given that we have to have some room for the track anyway, and we're probably going to square that off. Yeah. There's our section house. I like it when I find buildings really quickly and then I go, yep, that's exactly what I wanted. Is that a ramp? I'm just realizing this here. Is that like supposed to be for trucks? Doesn't say. I guess this is a platform where you could load freight cars, but I think what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to extend it a little bit further out just so that we have a bit more room for our... we have a little bit more room for freight cars. Yes, that is exactly what I wanted to say. I am liking this as a scene. But I welcome your guys' feedback. What do you think about this? I mean, obviously we have to do our ground texturing. But I like this a lot. Oh, we're going to need a water... We should put a water tower right about here. That feels right. If we don't put a water tower here, then we should put one near the station. Oh, decisions. Water tower by here. Water tower by the station. I don't think the track plan actually specifies where the water tower is supposed to go. It does not. So... Oh, it has the water tower over in this corner. Which... Do I want to do that? Or do I want to put it closer to the station? I mean, it would be really crowded in there. I like the idea of having it by the station. Maybe right in this corner here is where we put our water tower. I like that as an idea. Let's see what I feel like doing today for water towers. Can't go wrong with a CPR. I actually like this tower a lot. But it's a bit... Well, maybe what we do is we just have a water tower like this off to the side, and then we put trackside things. Standpipes. Thank you. I like that. Oh, I do like that. And then we could put one on each end of the platform so that you can refuel locomotives going either direction. Yep. Yeah, I like that tower too. Makes me nostalgic. So, first train layout I ever grew up with, my dad had built... My dad is, but he does less modeling these days, but was an amazing scratch builder. There's a story where he went to a seafood restaurant, ordered the lobster, ate the meat, reassembled the lobster to the extent that the wait staff had to ask what was wrong with the meal until he pointed out to them that actually he had consumed it and that he just reassembled the lobster. His ability to scratch build structures is incredible. So he made a water tower, and I remember that you could take the top off the water tower and see the bottom of the soup can that he used to actually make the building. I thought that was the coolest thing. I need one without the lines. I like this, but now I need the one without lines. Do I have one without lines? Interesting. I might have to just use ones with lines and then reskin a version without lines for later. Unless I'm missing one. Let me check. I could download that. NG platform. Let me download that. I think if one is not... Oh, no, those are the installed ones. So if I go to download station... fascinating. Interesting. I have some other options. I don't have what I need. I mean, I could make the platform out of brick. That would be kind of cool. Interesting. All of his platforms have these edges. So I'm going to need to at some point make a version of this platform that doesn't have edges. Because right now we've just got all these lines that we'll live with for the time being. But we can do better than that in the long run. But yeah, so you could see the soup can that he used to make the structure. And I thought that was the coolest thing. That layout, part of the genius of what he did with that layout. So my dad, born and raised in Ontario in the late 50s, early 60s. So anything Canadian, Canadian Pacific, Canadian National, that's his thing. And subsequently, he got me into it. Hence why I have a ton of Rapido stuff. Um, so, but back in the 1980s, you were hard pressed to find model manufacturers that knew there was a country called Canada. So his solution is that he had collected a bunch of Triang trains. Before Triang was bought out by Hornby, they produced this line of Canadian trains from between 1968 and 1972. And so my dad bought pretty much at least one of everything they had, and in some cases multiples. So you had this layout with this really tight Hornby track. Maybe we won't extend the platform there because we'll have, yeah, like parking lot stuff there. So this Hornby track, tight curves, tight switches, but with some absolutely stunning scratch-built structures, like the Chateau Laurier, which is a Canadian Pacific hotel in Ottawa, the downtown Ottawa Union Station. Oh, gorgeous buildings, just absolutely gorgeous. So, yes, really good stuff. I don't know that I will ever be that level of scratch builder, but I admire those who are. Good on you, Harley, for being a scratch builder. And so, yeah. So that gives us enough. I'm going to have to refine that a bit. But today's stream, because I have to pack, is going to be a little bit shorter, so I don't want to take too much time on this because I feel like I could spend a lot more time. So last thing we're going to do here is just get some basic ground textures down. Oh, and we have some trees. Because I do want to... I'm going to say I want to spend another half hour putting stuff down. And we're probably going to have to shortchange even some of these other scenes. But yeah, let's do what we can. So we'll get some trees here. We'll put the... let's see. Why did I search trees? I need STRMM. My go-to trees. And what do I feel like using today? Bit big. Yeah, that's a nice model. Put a couple of those down. Here. I'm gonna need some ones that aren't quite as wide. Oh, that looks good. So these trees are partially to hide the fact that the layout's then gonna, or this track here is gonna then disappear into staging. And that's okay. We welcome the illusion. I think that's good for the time being, and then maybe a couple more trees there. Definitely going with a lighter green aesthetic today. I do try, sometimes there's these interesting limitations one hits as far as how much pre-made stuff is available and how good it looks. It's always an interesting challenge to go in and say, okay, how do I make this not look like last month's layout? Which, the Myland branch was a fun build, if you guys had a chance to watch that or if you tuned in last month. And that was particularly fun having Scott along for the ride with that, where it's part interviewing him about his layout and part building his layout. There we go. I mean, the only thing with that is now having that much forest really does make it look more Eastern and less Midwest. So maybe we'll just omit that for the time being. Even though it's going to look incomplete, but it really does change the creative fabric of it too much, shall we say. No, I put that on the root level. Why am I not able to delete that? Okay, now I can. But I think that gives us enough of an... Honestly, if we leave it empty, then that's the Midwest right there. Parrot, I've seen somebody make a model battleship out of a lobster before. That sounds awesome. That sounds really awesome. Have to try that the next time I'm up in Maine. So, ground textures. Well, we're going to put down a base layer of grass, but we're probably going to cover most of it with dirt and stone, because there's just not going to be that much open. Let's see. Like, that'll be our base, because that's a nice look. It's very patterned. We'll mix it more in the open areas, but gives us just something to start with. Actually blends really well with those trees there. And ground rubble. Ooh, I like that, because it has a little bit of a drier look, which feels right for the Midwest. So yeah, we're gonna just paint that over the landscape. And then we'll go in there with the ballast and with the stone. But I'm liking how that looks. Yeah, that feels right to me. I feel like that's one of my t-shirtable phrases is, that feels right to me. Because at some point in every episode I go, that feels right to me. But it does. I've seen it already. I don't know if it's coming together for you guys, but I'm looking at it like that. It feels cohesive. It feels like everything belongs, which is always the trick with model railroading, with that selective compression. Getting everything to look like it belongs. But that's the benefit of doing this pre-visualization, is we have the ability to go in here and say, okay, does this actually work as well as it does on paper? Because you can have the world's greatest track plan on paper. You can be Iain Rice and do a whole illustration, make it look really nice. And then discover when you're building it, it actually looks really crowded. It doesn't look right. But we don't have to worry about that here, because here we've got benefits of technology. Honestly, I'm pretty happy with that. I suppose we should add a little bit more ballast, but I feel like there's some rock in here anyway, and I kind of like the idea that it's sort of not perfectly neat and kept. Especially if it's more of a spur. I'm going to go into driver mode briefly just to take a look at how that actually looks. Yeah, I'm digging that, guys. I'm digging that. More super detailing to be done off camera, but I'm happy with that. And I'm also particularly happy with how today's sponsor fits in. Banta Model Works. So you can see how well this Eaves Broadtop electrical shop fits into the context of this scene overall. Let's have a look at what the HO scale version of this model looks like. These are finished models, or a finished model. So this photo shows I can't speak fast enough. So here you have the shop on its own, and as you can see, it's a really nice kit that, if you had that as an individual structure, looks good. And then here you could see it in conjunction with the other East Broadtop buildings. BantaModelWorks.com to get your kit today. And thank you to Banta for sponsoring us. Great working with you guys. Great having you sponsoring Great Train Layouts Live. Okay, so that is our good enough for that. We need to get something over here. We're not going to have a lot of time for this part. We might end up splitting the stream in two, which is to say finishing this next month. Yeah, J-Train, I want to put a city backdrop, but I don't have a city backdrop to work with. So that's going to be an off-camera thing. where I'm probably going to actually have to make a backdrop and then put it in there. Yeah, I like using the lighter greens. I do so many roots with these darker greens. That feels too tall, but it looks cool. If I was going for a different vibe, I would totally use that tree. I mean, these are nice trees. I don't know. It feels a bit big, overpowering. I don't know if I want to overpower the scene like that. I mean, if I brought it down to this, then a bit better. Also super big. I need to actually look at what the heights are on this. 15 meters. Okay. Yeah, I know this is the same tree we have over there, but that looks more proportional to what we have going on. So somebody bring up once the fact that a lot of times model railroaders' trees are too small. If you're talking about scale, the tree should be a lot larger. And that is true. But honestly, sometimes I just feel like if you used actual scaled trees, they just, all of a sudden, they dominate the landscape. So sometimes you have to... That's another form of selective compression. Going to Millennial Modeler says, going to EBT for the first time in September after the N-Scale Convention Altoona. Look forward to seeing those buildings there. Have fun. Yes, you will like seeing those buildings in person. That is a very cool place. Okay, we need a barn. And we are going to put that barn here. I like this barn. This is a good backdrop barn. If I have somewhere to put a backdrop barn, I guess I could put a backdrop barn here. I like that. Well, so this is where we experiment too with what we want to do. So this is actually a signal box. I don't do a lot of signal boxes. So let's put a signal box. See if we like that. Yeah, I like having a signal box there. Something different. Signal box it is. Now, we could still put the farm there, but now it feels too crowded. So we need a small barn, an itty-bitty barn. And if I can't find one, I'll probably just drop in one later. There we go. Perfect. That's a nice building, too. We've got our barn. Oh, that's cute. That's really cute. And then we need a silo. We need to silo ourselves. STRMM dub 11, 15 meter. I think that's the one I ended up putting there, isn't it? I'll double check that after I've got my silo. This is a bit washed out. Let's see if I can find someone. There we go. Boom. Boom-de, boom-de. Yeah. I'm digging that. Man. I know I say this every week, guys, but this is becoming a layout I'd want to have in my own house. And it might be. Something like this does feel like something I would actually use. Okay, this is a diner. Let's see if I have a diner model we could put there. The Paradise Diner. Okay. Sure. I dig it. And a gas station. If we put the diner here, and then the gas station here. The gas station might have to blend into the backdrop a wee bit. But we'll do what we can to get it out there. Because, yeah. Well, that works. It works well enough for the sake of what we're doing here. Yeah, I'm digging that. Okay, let's look at that tree that you recommended, Parrot. Daylight Train, you have a better Cylon Trains Forge. Yeah, and I've probably even downloaded it. I just forget what it is. If you if you show me what the queue it is or the name of it, I might I'll put your silo in there instead. Okay, that STRMM dub 111248, which I think I have. Yeah, that is what I put there. That is exactly what I put there. And then we'll put one of those here. We've got a creek. Okay. Well, let's see. I want to make sure I get this store in place. I also want to get some haze bumpers. And we have a general store. Let's see about the general store first. I always find myself lacking general stores, generally speaking. Please tell me you see what I did there. That could work for me. It's not the nicest model, and it doesn't. Well, I think if we did it like this, and then we had a parking lot coming in, I could go for that. Or we have it facing out to where the parking lot would be, and the station's back there. Yeah. Okay, there we go. And then we need a regular store. We need something that is rail served in a town where it's going to be serviced by the local coming in. That, I don't know if I'd say store. To me, that feels like a freight, that should be a freight station. So let's put a very small freight house and a team track. He doesn't label a place for a team track, but I mean, come on, guys. That's an obvious spot right here for a team track. Totally where we need to put it. DYLT grain silo. I think I downloaded that. Let me see if I did actually. Shame on me. Shame on me. But I'll make sure it gets in the final version. Great house. Meanwhile, we want something kind of teeny weeny, kind of small. Small, teeny weeny weeny. That feels like it would fit into that little itty bitty nook. I don't want something super overpowering, super big. Oh. I don't know that I like the idea of having a covered one. But then again, that kind of looks cool and different. Yeah. I mean, it's REA though, and I don't know that this is a town that would have REA. Okay. Oh, perfect. Here we go. Cutesy poo. Itty bitty witty. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Little itty bitty freight house. And then the team track, as far as I'm concerned, that could just be a dirt lot. And then it's a team track. And that's awesome. Man, this is coming together faster than I thought it would. I mean, it's not going to be as fully polished as it will be for the final version. But I do like that. Ooh, I do. I do. So we're going to try to finish up building placement and some loose terrain painting in the next 10 minutes so that then we get 30 minutes to play. My wife wants to know if I could put people in. Yes, but that's a super detail that I don't know that I have time for because you want me to pack. And ergo, I don't have the full time amount of time to do detailing like people. So people will come off screen. Let's see what buildings we have remaining. And then we'll get to some terrain painting. Some houses. These aren't labeled except for this, which says farm. Oh, maybe we could get that barn that I wanted to use before. We'll put that in the corner. I like the idea of that, if we can make it work. Interesting. Now to find that barn. Like, oh, I like that model. Now it's going to disappear until I can find it again. I don't like that bank. I like the front of it okay. I'm not sure if that's what I want here, though. Now, what's going to be interesting here, and I think the trees will help with this, is trying to separate the two. Oh, what's interesting, I'm just realizing this now. This is supposed to be on a bank. And we can see that because of the line. So this is supposed to be elevated. That makes sense, and that's also going to look really cool. Probably not something I have time to do today, but maybe we'll get to it. Barn MVC. A bit small. But maybe that's what I want. On the one hand, I like that they're small. Horn on that one. Not sure that it's what I want to be going for. Where was that barn? Like, of course, after I find a building I like, I'm not going to be able to find it on command again. Some derelict barns, but you don't want derelict. EMT old barn. One looks okay. This is all listed as so we need a farmhouse. That would be an omission that I don't want to make. So we need a farmhouse. Yeah, we don't have a lot of blue. I could see that being a nice color on the layout. I mean, gray feels more traditional. Maybe that's a little bit more subtle. And I can hear my wife, who we painted a blue house for my actual train layout, and that other color going, no, the other one was better. But I think this faded look maybe fits the vibe we're going for a bit more. But we have that there. We have a barn here. Ooh, that. I'm digging that. I'm digging that. And then some kind of shed. Or let's just look for farm sheds and see what we can do on that particular front. Oh, I'm just looking at the chat now and realizing I've been getting all sorts of advice from Bethany. And Leo Carpenter, who want animals. And you want yellow. Maybe I have a farmhouse that's yellow. I'll do what I can. I will do what I can. A nice structure. That's more European, I think, but nice structure. Yeah, there we go. I dig it. There's our farm. And now just to see if I can find a farmhouse that satisfies Bethany. If I could spell house. Whose? Well, that's actually a nice house. I feel like I want to use that elsewhere. Maybe in the backdrop here? Something like that. I think I downloaded those recently, which is why I wasn't thinking of them. That's actually pretty nice too. But I'm looking for a yellow one. I don't know that there's yellow. There's white, and there's this sort of blue, and this sort of lime green. I don't like the lime green. No, I think we're going with blue. Sorry. I tried for yellow. Leo, maybe a few more passing loops for operational potential, or another station to allow for more pasture trains. Well, we do have 2 stations. Could you fit another one in? Yeah, you could probably put a station here. For me, I'm designing the track plan as it is, but I encourage you, when it's done and you download it, to experiment with adding more stations, because I think there's certainly a case to be made for using that as an approach. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes before I want to start running trains. So I do want to get the landscaping in, though. So let's see what we can do on that, because I'd like to see how that embankment looks, and also do this creek. And then we've got the road. What is most pressing for today? Let's see where we're at. So much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back streets? You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. I would say let us... Since this is already so detailed, and this is something we'll spend time around in, let us... let's work on the farm. Because we have what we need to operationally test it. We're good on that front. I'm seeing Leo Carpenter say roads and water. Okay, fair enough. We'll do roads and water. That actually does make sense. Let's start with roads. So it doesn't say whether this is paved or not, but given that there's a gas station on here, that could be either. Let's say a paved road and a dirt road, because then we get a little bit of each. So I'm going to make the paved road the one that goes by the station and the dirt road that goes by farm. So for that, I need yarn. Not actual yarn, I need yarn roads. And we'll do this one. This will be our... Yeah, one of the things I wish in Trainsy was that there was an easy ability to have things cut off at angles. Because that's going to be awkward. I think I know how I'm going to handle that. Come the time to kind of add the final polish with things, but for the time being, that's what it's going to have to be. The road here, that's going to be a dirt road. So what kind of dirt road is going to be the question. I imagine it's a dirt road that is going to be made of dirt. I know that was very, very specific. I like that as a texture, though. It's a little too flat, though, because I need something that kind of has a little bit more texture to it, or depth. That's maybe a bit wide. That could work for my needs. Okay, so we've got our road. Now we need our creek. So to do our creek, we need to first lock in our track at an elevation of 0, so that way once we start playing with the terrain, the track doesn't go along for the ride. We want the track to stay at a nice height of 0. That's good enough. And we're going to add this creek. The way we're going to add this creek, we're going to do it a little differently than how we usually do it. Because usually when I do creeks, I take the terrain down, which I am going to do, and then I add water. But the downside with that approach is that then your creek ends up being pretty thick. So we're going to add in a spline creek for this. It's just going to be a itty bitty bitty thingy-majiggy. So we'll probably go wider than we need to on this. And then I trigger the layer. Because that's not a super wide creek. I think if I search CL Creek... I know that there is. I know that what I want exists. It's just a question of what it is. Yes. It's a matter of being one of these assets, which as I'm combing through these assets, I have to say rest in peace to Malcolm, aka Clam1952, who made a lot of this stuff that you see with the CL heading. He also made a really nice Festiniog and Welsh Highland Railways route for Trainsy. And he passed away about a month ago. So I was sorry to hear that, because he was such a prolific creator and very helpful as well. Because I had a couple of questions for him that he was very quick to answer. And very friendly as well with his allowing people to reskin his work. So Train Simming's kind of like family. I mean, some people you know more than others. Actually, I have a really good friend who I met in real life because of Train Simming, and we still talk on a very regular basis. So it's its own kind of community. Let's search. Try Creek. But yes, quick tribute to Malcolm. River. I know that there are spline rivers, and if you guys could think of any out there, um, Harley, Memphis, let me know if you could think of any spline rivers other than these super wide ones. And what was the question? Oh, I took you back with the lyrics to All Star John Overman. Good. Um, no crossing barriers, only warning signs. Agreed on that, Leo. Um, have you thought about making a British themed route? I did. In fact, you might have missed it when I announced earlier. Oh, here's Alco. Here's our other cat cameo for the day. So while I'm holding Alco, I can tell you that if you support Great Train Layouts Live on Patreon, go to patreon.com/theroundhouse and support us. You will get early access to trains layouts before they're released on greattrainlayoutslive.com. And currently, there's the Whiz Beach and Upwell layout, which I built back in early February. There's what I was looking for. Okay. That is what I wanted. So if you, for as little as $1 a month, you can gain early access to that train layout. That was a 00 scale British layout, about set for the Whiz Beach and Upwell Railway. Or Upwell Tramway, I should say. So I encourage you to check that one out. I was going to use this thin one, and that's what I was thinking of, but I actually really like this one more. So we're going to use this one. And we're just going to kind of try to line it up to be square with whatever the edge of the base ends up being. But there we go. There's our little creek, which we could also probably make even a wee bit smaller, just so it doesn't come quite as close to the edge there. Oop, too small. But I really want that to be nice and tight on that. And then that go down a little bit. Yeah, I'm happy with how that looks. And then that's about the edge of our layout. Now just to set the approaches for, well, I shouldn't set the approaches for 0 because I'm actually going to have to lower that terrain because I'm going to put that all up on embankments. So, because now we have our river, although I should put in a bridge. A little bridge would be worthwhile. The embankments are going to have to wait for another time. We'll just put the ground in and then the embankments will be a later thing. But at least we have our major landmarks in place. We'll get the terrain textures in place just so that we're not looking at grid. But this gives us a good sense of what we're working for. I don't know if there's enough here to finish it on stream next time, but we'll definitely... It will be finished and eventually released on greattrainlayouts.com. Your crew is calling you for a train to run. You're late. Yes, I am. But I also want to get a bridge in quickly. So let's see. This feels like wood trestle to me. This feels very much like wood trestle. So what wood trestle do I want to use? I want to use this. And ordinarily, I don't use red, even though it is my favorite color. But today, we're using red, because I feel like it. So we're going to delete this piece of track, and then move the bridge into place here, here, and here. Get the track hooked up. Oh, interesting. That bridge track is actually treated like regular track, which means I should be able to just, yep, connect it like that. I dig that. I dig that bridge. That looks legit. I do say so myself. And then I think I can, yes, abutments that fit the track textures I have and go there. Although I'll need to raise up the terrain a little bit. And there. Nice. We're doing this the proper way. How much longer till I drive a train? I know, you guys are just dying to see me drive a train. Just give me a couple minutes to finish this bridge. Let's get some terrain textures in here so it doesn't look like I'm driving on a piece of paper. And then we'll do this thing. Okay, let's get some terrain textures in there. This ground rubble, which we're using as our main base. We're just going to go all the way over. Just big painting of it. I'm kind of inclined to fill the middle of it too, just so we don't have to look at the grid. It's going to look grid-like, but at least it'll look a little nicer. Final version of this, I'm going to open up the center and we're going to make it look train layout a bit for now, just so it doesn't look ugly. We're going to do that. Then we're going to get the ground rubble and pebbles. Nope, that's what we had already. We're going to get ground rubble 61 and pebbles. And we're just going to paint that. Nope, that's not the one I wanted. I want 63 and pebbles. There we go. It's so tempting to write my name in the textures in the middle, but I will resist the urge. And then along the edges, we'll make this look a little neater, a little finer. But I'm glad that you guys are so eager to get to the part where we run trains. Is it just because then you get to criticize my switching? I don't blame you if it is, but I'm just curious. Okay. So, lacking a lot of detail, but getting the basic placement of a lot in there. You gotta tune out, Harley? Well, thank you, and happy trails to you as well. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're gonna want to lower that. Just so that it doesn't look like it's flying in midair. And then what else do I want to do before? Oh, just kind of loosely ballast the track. The track has ballast with it, but give it a little bit more of a sense that there is actually proper ballast. And we just go along where the track is, and we just paint it. And then we will get to the part of the show where we drive a train, and we'll drive a couple trains. We're going to start off with the express mail train, because that seems like a good place to start, and because that'll give us a nice kind of little tour of what we've built, and then from that, we will then do a more branch line local thing. I think I know what I want to do, and I think you guys are going to like it. Okay. So, and we've left all our switch stands to the default because I could, I'll do a mass replace of them just so that they don't look, oh, I'll do them as Caboose Industries ground throws. That sounds like fun. So this is something that I developed. This is actually my 3D model. I'm very proud of myself. I made proper Caboose Industries ground throws. And so that's what we're going to have on the layout today, is Caboose Industries ground throws, just like you would have on a real layout. Or you might. I mean, obviously there's a million other things you could be doing. I just need to rotate a couple of these so that they don't appear on the track or the platform. I'm so glad I did these guys. So these are full custom models that I did. I made these in Blender. These are my babies. I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of my 3D modeling, as limited as it may be. Dakota Plays. Have you ever thought about building the Midwest Central Railroad? It's a nice small narrow gauge railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa that runs steam. Depends on how big it is, but I like things that have more operations. So a tourist railroad, it's basically just about going back and forth. Probably not something I'm going to build, but maybe. Anything's possible. Okay, so reminder of where we started and where we're at. So this is the track plan that we came in with, the transition era CBQ, which I am very interested to hear your naming suggestions. Please leave a comment below with what you think. A, the name of the layout as a whole should be. Ideally, some type of branch or something branch of the Minnesota Northern, because that's the fictional railroad we're going to be playing with, and then a name for the town. So that's what we started with, and this is where we're at. And see, even in just an hour and 40 minutes, we've come up with something that is going to be a good indicator as far as whether or not this would be fun. And once we super detail it, then we're gonna really know. So either next time on this show, or off camera, I'll be working more on this. Let me know if you want to see me continue this build, because if it doesn't take the full 3 hours next month, we could always spend some time on some other routes. And truth be told, I'm also not gonna have a lot of time in between this month and next month's stream, so yeah, we might come back. All right. You want me to play with trains? We are going to play with trains. We're also going to make sure our switches are set correctly, but we can take care of that after we place the trains down. First off, we're going to stage the fast mail. So, as I said, we are playing with the Minnesota and Northern Railroad as our railroad today. This is our... This is a fictional railroad by Daylight Train of Trainsforge, and you can buy these locomotives on trainsforge.com. They are gorgeous, as you are about to see. So this is something where it might go through the scene, but it wouldn't... Looks like it's actually longer than the staging track, which is kind of interesting to note. But it wouldn't actually do anything in town. So we're just gonna run it, and we're gonna see what we think of it. As far as just, does this satisfy mainline running? I'm going to need to turn down my volume there, because, boy, that is a loud choo-choo. Once I get to my volume control. There we are. Okay. So, here we are with 10:45. This is an absolutely gorgeous model. Let me make sure I got my switches set the right way before we crash because I didn't set a switch properly. The absolutely gorgeous model. You can see even the clapper and the bell moves. That is some attention to detail there. Full cab view. With different places to sit. So we'll bring this up to speed. And this locomotive comes with the cars that you see on the train. So we've got these nice baggage cars, express box cars. So it feels like a proper mail train. So, now, if we're pretending that this is N scale, this seems about like the viewing distance that makes it a believable N scale train. Let's make sure that switch over here is set correctly too. Oh, it's not, so we're going to go back into staging and then we'll come back out. That's fine. The number one thing that I like about this plan is the fact that it is a roundy-roundy. And it's a roundy-roundy, and it also... Ooh, it's spicy on the speed. I like that it's a roundy-roundy, and I like the fact that this part of the layout... And this is something that I've really taken to heart with this design that I think I would definitely do on my big one. Is that not everything feels like it is a specific place. I want my layout to have a sense that there's an in-between, that the train is actually traveling from one place to another. Because, yeah, it'd be tempting to add... You could add a station over here, a station over... Oop. I did crash. Oh, because it was set for the siding. Okay. I don't want to read your comments about urinating in cups. That will not be necessary. That was an honest mistake. There was nothing to see. See, there's not even a train anymore. That's how good we are. We sent that train on its merry way. So we're gonna try that again. We're gonna try that again. Okay, so here's our train. I was like, Why is that so quiet? And why has that not come back around again? Okay, so while that gets underway, as I was saying, I like that this has a sense of in between two locations, that not everything is in a specific town. Because I like the idea that if I was running with a train like this, that I could just watch it go through a scene like this farm, and it's not in a specific place. And even here, where this is a specific town, but it's not super distinct. So, because there's so many branch lines where there might be 4 or 5 stations along the way that look exactly the same. So if you were running this as a session, you might have the same train stop at this place 3 different times just to give that sense of having gone to different stations that just so happen to look the same. Am I? Nope, I'm set for the siding. But we can fix that this time, because I at least realized my mistake, which is good. There we go. And then we'll do a proper station stop here in just a moment. And then here's our crossing. Here we'll get a little closer to the tracks, even though it doesn't have that same end scale feel. I mean, that is a nice locomotive. Oh, daylight training. Would it be a MNRR route without a major derailment taking place? Well, I'm glad I'm doing your railroad justice, sir. Okay. Now we're going to do our station stop in insert town name here. And for kicks and giggles, we'll bring it on that outside track, because that does feel like a particularly nice display track. And our switches are all lined properly, which is good. We'll just platform, because why not? Not exactly the end scale experience, but that just looks so cool. And see, this is the thing. Like this, so you have this somewhat long passenger train. I mean, if we brought, well, let's break out the ruler and see how long that is. I mean, yes, it's an express mail train, but you know what I mean. Okay, so 681 feet. Great. What does that look like in N scale? Well, we go to here and we set our real scale down to N scale. Yeah, 4 feet. I mean, we'd have to put it on the actual straight track, so about 5 feet long N scale train. That's it, which would be about 10 in a show. Yeah, that's a pretty sizable train. But it looks comfortable here. It doesn't look like we've squeezed it in. It doesn't look small for the space. So this is a great way to be able, so you figure a good space for being able to have your nice streamliner or your nice multi-car passenger train and give it room to breathe, give it a really nice scene to be in. Not all your cars may be on the platform, but they don't all have to be. It just has to look like presentation. Oh yeah, that's a screenshot moment there. Okay, let's get underway. We'll take it back into staging. Now, one of the interesting limitations with this is that is our turntable size. So the reason we can't take this engine and say, oh, it's turning around and going somewhere else is because it's too big for the turntable. We have something for that. Not for this engine. This engine just has to go off scene. But we do have some smaller engines that'll be right at home on here. That is what I was thinking of it. Trains-forged.com. And then we'll pick it up to speed. But this is a layout that I think to myself, I would seriously consider this type of plan for my big one, where you have one big town, one little teeny town. Oh, I need to make sure my switch is set for staging. Good. And then a lot of in-between running so that you don't have that feeling of it being just a small sliver of things. But that said, if you didn't have room for all of this, there's certain elements of this that you could take and make into their own layout. Like, you could just have the small town be its own layout. Or you could just have the large town be a shelf layout. There's a lot of flexibility with how you take scenes out of this and make them your own for whatever room you have. Hey, Riley, glad that you could join us. Hey, NPK fan. Okay, so that's going back to staging. And again, as we can see, the limitation we have with staging, assuming that wall is off limits, that you can't get back there easily, is you have to assemble your trains on the layout and then move them into staging, and all your staging can be for is just positioning something in and out of the scene. That may or may not be a deal breaker for you depending on how you run, but that's just something that I would consider. So now, what if we want something that's a little bit smaller than that, and actually be able to do a little bit of work here? Not that we're going to have enough time. In fact, we're really not going to be able to have enough time. So we'll save that. We'll save that for another day. But there's one other thing I want to show you guys tonight. And this is something I'm particularly proud of. So one of the things that we'll note with how this layout has been set up is that there's this little track here, and I can't show you the label on it, but on the track plan itself, it's labeled as the Doodlebug Spur. Well, what are we going to put on the Doodlebug Spur? Maybe we should put an actual Doodlebug. Now, this is another story. Oh, interesting. That switches. Oh, here. And I'll need to turn down my volume because I can tell that's already very loud. Actually, I'm going to need to turn down my computer volume as well because, boy, I can't really hear myself. Okay. And then I'll turn this volume up so you can hear it a bit better. All right. So, here we go. Make sure our switches are set correctly. They are. So our Doodlebug Spur gets to have an actual Doodlebug. So this, I am actually pleased to say, is my work, sort of. This is originally a model created for Microsoft Train Simulator by Paul Charland, and he gave me permission to adapt it for Train Z. Initially, I thought it would be a very short project. This is probably about 15 hours of work, because I did a lot of I added more faces to give it, because he made it a low poly model originally, so I increased the detail on it. I made the textures PBR so that they pop more in this game. I rounded off handrails. So yeah, 15 to 20 hours. Oh, and the sounds, they're from an actual Brill Doodlebug. They are specifically from East Broad Top N1, the horn, the bell. Ignore the card that just morphed through us. So yeah, this is a labor of love that I've been looking forward to having a chance to show off. It's pretty well done. It is not available for release or for downloading yet, though hopefully by next month it will be, because there's not too much that has to be done with it, other than just a lot of testing to make sure I haven't missed something on it, because that's always the case, is I'd be working on it and I would miss something with it. Like, already I could see something I missed with it that I'm going to have to fix, but I'm not going to point it out to you because I don't want to bother myself like that. But here we go for the sort of trackside experience. Oh, right. Like, one of the things I have to fix is the fact that the weight on it is too heavy, so it's going to take forever to stop. Forgot that detail. Oops. Oh well. Does it have an interior? Kind of. It does not have a cab view. The cab view is alias to another Brill motor car model, which is available on Trainsforge. This isn't accurate for it, but frankly, I do not have it in me to do a full cab view for this model. If somebody else wants to have that fun, they can go for it. What's interesting about this this specific model, FJG number 340, is that it is not a passenger Brill. So it was built as a passenger Brill car, hence all the windows, but by the I don't know if the FJ&G got it this way or they converted it this way, but at some point the FJ&G took out this, or the seats were taken out and it was turned into a freight express car, and that's all the FJ&G used it for, was freight express. So there's an interior in the sense that yes, you can look inside it, and it does actually look like it has an inside, but it it's bare because it was a freight motor by this point in its life. Oh yeah, and I added all these rivets, and they are 3D. And good golly, Miss Molly, I have a whole new respect for 3D modeling and 3D modelers after doing this model, because I didn't even make this from scratch. Again, this was just taking a pre-existing mesh and reworking it a lot. But yeah, this was a lot of work. But worth it, because I really wanted this in the game, and now I have it. At some point, I plan to do an FJ&G layout. The Fonda, Johnstown, and Gloversville was a short line in New York State, so at some point I'd love to do something for this railroad. But I just love the motor car so much, and it was fun to try to get the sounds for it, because I was filming for Heiss for his EBT stuff, so we rode M1, so I had plenty of audio to work from for that, to get the horn, the bell, and the motor car sounds. And off we go. So another thing that I like about this design and why I would do it is that I don't have any Brill Doodlebugs, but I do have Rapido RDCs. And so I'm going to set this to loop a bit. I don't want it to go back to the station just yet. So the advantage that a plan like this offers is that you have the ability, as we saw earlier in the stream, to do your trains that go around in that are sort of mainline trains that come into the scene and then go out from the scene from one end of the layout to the other end. But you also have the ability to have trains that terminate, turn around, and go back where they came from, including this. So you could run a schedule whereby you have some train that comes out here that meets RDCs or Brill cars that go into that stub track there, and then your other train continues on its way. So even with only one place to pass trains, essentially, there's a multitude of ways you can have those meets. They could just be, hmm, I don't know why it disappeared like that. That's probably an LOD thing I'll have to play around with. Um, but uh, but there's a multitude of ways you can operate it. So even as one set plan, there's no one set way that you have to run it. Let's see. Frame rate 24. Hey, good to see you. And hey, Arthur. Um, frame rate 24. So after learning about the Rio Grande Southern Geese, the more and more motor cars I look at, the more and more I don't hate them. Well, that's good. Motor cars are really fun and a kind of underrated part of rail preservation, because they're not a full train, but honestly, they are so cool and unique and individual. Uh, you think I'm short 3 rivets on the front? Yeah, I probably am. I'm also probably short 3 rivets in the mind. Arthur Grogan, sup? Good to see you. Um, Mr. Railyard, hey, is there any Thousand Islands Railway stuff in trains? Funny you should ask that. There is. So one of the two diesels that the Thousand Islands Railway used, the Westinghouse diesel, somebody has made that for Train Z. Nobody has done the smaller switcher. I've contemplated that because Paul Charland, who gave me permission to do uh, this guy, does have number 500 as a model. So that's something that it's something I could see making at some point. I like the idea of doing a Thousand Islands Railway themed layout as well, where I'd actually design it, because I haven't seen any designs of it, so I'm thinking of designing one myself and then building it in the game. Um, we'll see if that happens. The trick is just that designing a layout always takes more time, and I have enough projects that take time as it is. Oh, let's do something fun before we close out tonight's stream. Well, let's bring the motor car into, since this is a freight express car, let's bring it into the freight station, and then it can continue on its way. That seems like a realistic thing. Man, I wish I'd remembered about the physics issues with this, though, before going into it. All that extra stopping distance it needs. Riley Grogan, do I have any BNSF trains saved? I don't. I haven't made any BNSF layouts yet. I do have some track plans that I'd like to do, but none that I've built yet. So I think now that, as I'm looking around and going, man, there's a lot of detailing we could do. I think next month we'll come back here and we'll give it the final pass. And if there's more, some extra time, we'll just do something else. I've got plenty of other layouts you haven't seen yet that we could have some fun with. So bringing in the Brill motor car so it can unload freight baggage. And here too is another way that you could have trains meet, is that if your Doodlebug is a freight Doodlebug, or maybe a passenger one but it's towing a car, it comes in for a station stop here and then something else passes it on the main line. In fact, let's do that. It sounds like such a great idea. Let's just do that. So we're going to bring this to a stop, and then while it's doing its thing, we will spawn in another passenger train. Let's do something a bit different. Let's give a teaser to what you could expect next month. Which is, let's see, E3 engine. No, I want the late engine, I think. Yes. No, the road engine, actually. Yeah, that's what I want. T5. And then I forget which tender it goes with. I think it's a... Yes, there we go. That's what I wanted. Like how the tender has a bell as well as the locomotive. And if I'm doing something wrong on Daylight Train, I'm sure you'll warn me. Looks like we only have baggage cars. We don't actually have any passenger cars for this yet. Is that just because I haven't downloaded them? Maybe. So maybe we'll do some express boxcar freight thing, since they have these nice matched boxcars. There we go. And place the caboose. Because I did see we had a caboose. And then we reverse the direction. And then we tell this train to go choo-choo. So this is another, I'll get it out from the ugly staging area and then you can properly see it. That's at the right direction, that's at the right direction, and that's at the right direction. So we'll have a proper meet. So this is also available for from trainsports.com. This is the Minnesota and Northern T5. And we're running the more modern version, which has a really cool central driver, as you'll see when it passes us. Makes me think of the New York Central Hudsons. So this is some type of fast merchandise train we've got going on, and it's going to pass our Doodlebug in the siding here. I should see if Daylight Train wants to reskin this Doodlebug as a Minnesota Northern thing. If you want that, Daylight, let me know. Because I think you could do a good job on this model. I mean, is that cool or is that cool? So next week when we play with this, we'll spend a bit more time with the steam locomotives because these 10-wheelers are perfectly suited for a branch line like this. We'll definitely have that fun. But for now, we just can have a quick appreciation of it. It gets to make a quick cameo as it goes through the town of, I guess, Relis, until somebody comes up with a better name for it. I mean, that looks nice. I really like it. It'll look better once we've got a custom backdrop, and hopefully I'll have some time that I can make something that fits in there before we play next month, but oops, that switch isn't set properly. Oh well, could be okay. I do like this junction though. This junction scene, man, it makes me rethink having signal towers. I'm not usually a fan of signal boxes. They're not a sort of must-have kind of thing, but it looks cool there. But see, this is a layout. I mean, the number one challenge I find with model railroading for me is, can I settle on a single design where it's like, if I had nothing else to play with, would this satisfy me? And I do think that the answer to this is yes. I think that this, because it satisfies me, and I think it would fit, because we're making this sort of Midwestern themed, but I do think that it would fit my Canadian rolling stock actually quite well in terms of theming, especially if I give it more trees and give it a little bit more of an Eastern theming. But I could do Saskatchewan or something like that with this. I mean, I just to kind of prove a point, because nobody was asking me to prove a point, but I like proving points. Let's just throw a D10 in here and just have a look at how that looks. Throw a D10. And we're going to throw in some CP 40-foot boxcars. Yeah, I know we just did a boxcar train, but this is my go-to car. This is just an easy one where I know it looks good and I know it works. And we put in a combine or a caboose. What do I feel like? Combine or caboose? Well, the last train had a caboose, so let's do combine. Or coach. Good enough for me. Okay. Here we go. So now we're taking this and we're gonna treat it as Canadian. Also a Trains Forge model. This one is freeware. Let me make sure I have all my switches set correctly. I do. That's always a good thing. And we'll just route that into staging because then we should get our Doodlebug back to its proper siding and call it a night. I like how that looks. I'm looking at this and thinking, okay, I know what building I have in kit form that I would put there. I know what building I would put there. This is definitely a super temptation because again, we may have built it in N scale, but it does fit HO, just double the size and it would fit. Is this game free on PC? No. Trains 19 does cost money. Oh, I should make sure I get a view of it going over that bridge. Yep, there we go. Oh, yep. That looks right. That feels so right. And then here's our meet with the Doodlebug. Again, not very N scale like, but I can't help it. I just like this too much. Oh, that looks nice. Yeah, I mean, this is a very satisfied track plan. This is definitely the type of thing that I want to build when I have the room for it. Because it has the right feel, it's a manageable size as far as what it would actually take to construct, and it's flexible. Because this is fit for a perfectly square room, but if you had it a bit narrower, a bit longer, you could still make it work. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, let us take our Doodlebug the final distance home. Oops. I didn't mean to go into surveyor mode, I just meant to press F1. And just going to switch the drive with the direction so we can change the headlight. And we'll actually let the AI do the driving this time, because why not? It can figure out what to do. It will not stop it in time, but that's okay. Because that's okay. So I know this time we prioritize more of the point-to-point stuff, but I think that next time, next month, stream is going to be on, I can give you an actual date too. It's going to be on June 22nd. June 22nd at 7. So we try to keep these consistent to the fourth Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be back here. We're going to finish this up. We're going to do the super detailing, and then we'll run it, and we'll actually do switching with it, and then we can really explore the question of, does this feel like enough going on to keep the operations interesting? Between that and being able to stage train movements, that's what we're going to play around with next week. But at least we've had a chance to dip our toes into seeing what it's like to create each of these scenes. I want to thank tonight's sponsor, Bantam Model Works. This fine East Broadtop electrical brake house, which we've kind of snuck into the background, is something that you can buy from bantammodelworks.com. You can see photos of the actual kit in its completed form here. This is a laser cut kit. Works both as an individual building like you see in this photo, or as part of their other East Broadtop kits. So thank you to them. Thank you to Trains Forge as well for supporting the stream and providing the fine locomotives that you see on stream here. The mountain that we saw earlier tonight, pulling the fast mail, and the 10-wheeler are both available on trains with a Z hyphen forge.com. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in and being part of this experience and part of the fun. It's always enjoyable to do these great train layouts with you and explore these different track plans. I love hearing your feedback. I love hearing from you. If you have interest in me helping you to realize your layout vision, feel free to contact me. I do commissions. Go to greattrainlayouts.com. And you could also see some of the other layouts we've built on the show, both in video form or if you want to download them from Trains Railroad Simulator 19. Final comments to respond to before we call it a night. Speaking, Framerate 24 says they have a couple of locos painted in new CPKCS scheme. Nice. John Overman says, love the diner scene. Yeah, that diner scene was a nice surprise. So, with that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been wonderful to hang out with you, and I look forward to joining you. Join me next month. That's going to be June 22nd at 7 p.m. here. If you want to make sure you're notified about that, you can also subscribe to the Nick Ozark YouTube channel. That's also appreciated. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night. And last note, don't forget, if you have name ideas for this layout or the town or the line, leave a comment below. Thank you, and have a good night.